Hello everybody, welcome to the stream of the Allianz Industrie 4.0 Baden-Württemberg on new digital business models and equipment as a service. My name is Marc-Daniel Moessinger, I'm head of the project Allianz Industrie 4.0 and I'm happy to host this stream for you today. We broadcast this stream from Code N in Stuttgart, and for those of you who do not know Code N is an innovation platform that offers working spaces for startups and its partners. And it is also the sponsor of the DE Hub Future Industries. So as you can see, you can rent space from Code N for your events as well. And if you are interested in this, please click on the link below. In the following 25 minutes, I'm going to talk with 4 distinguished experts and practitioners on current developments and practical examples on equipment as a service in the business-to-business sector. And my first guest today is Oliver Schollhammer. Oliver is head of the Department Corporate Strategy and Development at the Fraunhofer Institute for Manufacturing, Engineering and Automation in Stuttgart. And of course, due to his job, he is intensively engaged with new services and business models. So Oliver, nice to see you and thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you for the invitation, and I'm pleased to be able to answer your questions.
So I would like to directly jump into the questions. And my first question is, what does the slogan Equipment as a Service stand for? And why is this business model interesting for potential customers?
Okay, please let me first go into what Equipment as a Service stands for. Today in the industry sector, traditional business models and service offerings still dominate in most cases. That means that transactions usually take place via traditional fixed customer-supplier relationships based on the principle of goods for money. And the focus is often exclusively on the sale of physical product systems with a very high technological quality and sometimes supplementary services such as maintenance service. The principle of equipment as a service turns this apparently prevailing rule of law on its head. The focus of equipment as a service is on the actual value proposition that is generated via the equipment and which the customer then pays exclusively for after it has been fulfilled. This means that the customer no longer buys, for example, a printing press, a laser system, a compressor or special tool, but he pays for an expected specified type and quantity of printed paper, cut sheet, cubic meters of air, or productivity gain. And this shifts me from the traditional capital-based business to data-based service and value-oriented business generates benefits for both the customer and the provider. And now let's look at the customer side. It should be mentioned that companies on the customer side, for example, could use equipment as a service to shape their cost structures very flexible. And they benefit, among other things, from significantly lower startup investments in technical equipment or software systems. On the one hand, this enables optimal responsiveness to volatile market needs and faster growth or scaling with lower investment risks at the same time. And the reason for this is that in contrast, the one-off payments, the expense with equipment as a service doesn't increase in leaps and bounds, but linear with the output. And on the other hand, necessary innovations and further developments could be carried out even in times of crisis, because, for example, unused capacities don't have to be paid for and capital is available for other purposes. And a further advantage is that customers can concentrate on their own strategic core competencies as the equipment as a service provider take responsible for the entire service, such as the deployment or maintenance of the equipment, and the responsibility for certain value-added tasks passes to the equipment as a service provider.
I mean, it is often mentioned that this type of business model has been around for a long time, but from your perspective, why is this topic currently experiencing a new push, especially in the business-to-business sector?
Yes, in fact, the idea is not entirely new, and there are examples or companies that have been following this approach for decades. So far, however, there is a lack of a broad successful realization of equipment as a service offerings and usage-based business models in the industry. The current push you ask for comes on the one hand from an increasingly strong customer pull, and the customer no longer wants to own, but is interested in an expected result that meets his needs, or simply things have to work. On the other hand, basic technologies that make such a concept possible are available today, unlike a few years ago. And this includes, for example, IoT, 5G, cloud infrastructure, big data analytics, interface solutions, or sensor technology.
My final question is, which preconditions, both in technological terms and in cultural terms, do companies have to fulfill to make such an equipment as a service business model work? And how do you see this type of business model developing over the, let's say, next 5 years?
Okay. The concept is seen as having great potential, but there is, in our experience, still a lot of work to be done to get there. And there will certainly be some learning curves involved. And the challenges are really diverse. First of all, the base is access to data. This requires mechanism and standards for interfaces, data transmission and handling processes. And it is also important, for example, to clarify in advance who owns the collected data and who can access it in order to prevent misuse of the data. Another challenge is that efficient cross-company end-to-end processes are needed for the development and the operation of equipment as a service. And this must first be established. Otherwise, companies will never really make money with this concept. A further important challenge is that for a broad market acceptance, a proof of business case from the customer point of view is necessary, in addition to the technical proof of concept. And here are new evaluation reports are needed. It can be also assumed that forms of payment will change in the future. Already today, services are paid for alternatively in the form of data instead of money, and new pricing methods needed to be developed here. And if you look at the design of equipment as a service, new forms of collaboration and partners are required here, as well as expanded competencies in areas such as financing, risk hedging, certification, or orchestration. And the emergence of new partners in the ecosystems, such as investors or orchestrators, means that business relationships need to be reshaped. And at least the reshaping of business relationship also means that currently the business relationship is mostly still based on personal and personalized interaction between the customer and the supplier. And in the future, however, this form of new business model means that service provision will become increasingly anonymous, and the focus of customer needs will shift to speed, performance, or innovation. And this requires a new culture and way of thinking in provider companies.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Oliver, for these interesting insights and for being here with us today.
Yeah, thank you. You are welcome.
And our next speaker now is Tom Schneider from TRUMPF Machine Tools. I'm here with Dr. Tom Schneider today. Tom is Managing Director, Research and Development at TRUMPF Machine Tools in Ditzingen. And Tom, a warm welcome to you and thanks for having you.
Thanks for inviting.
When we look back in the fall 2020, TRUMPF dominated the headlines of several business newspapers with the announcement of a new type of cooperation on an equipment as a service model. So my first question to you is, can you describe this model to us, and why is this business model interesting for TRUMPF as well as for your partners?
Yeah, so we started in the fall the first development of a business model, and therefore we started a cooperation with Munich Re as a partner to support us in two ways. So on the one hand side, we have seen that in our market the customers have to grow, and growth is always a challenge, especially in the digital transformation. And we looked for a partner who could help us on the digital transformation for our customers, as well as on the finance side, because the key idea of our pay-per-part model is that we keep the equipment on the balance sheet of our partner, and the customer gets the equipment and therefore could grow in his environment by just paying for the parts produced. That is the key idea, and that's new. And therefore, we looked for a partner to develop this new business model.
And this partner is Munich Re.
The partner is Munich Re with the company Relayer, fully a part of the Munich Re group, and in the specialty with IoT and advanced analytics. And on the other side, in the Munich Re group, there are partners helping us in the finance side and especially in the insurance side for this business model.
We will come back to the insurance question in a minute, but I would like to stick a little bit more into the details. So what is the exact role of the partners? So for instance, who owns the machines, who is responsible for the production process, and with whom does the user conclude a contract?
So in principle, there are three partners. So first, the customer. The customer gets the equipment in his production site, and we jointly, Munich Re and TRUMPF, have a cooperation, which is where the Munich Re side owns the machine. So they are buying the machine from TRUMPF, and the TRUMPF machine then goes directly into the production side of our customers. And we provide services to the Munich Re, which are then supporting the customer to produce. So it's a connection of TRUMPF providing the machine to Munich Re and services to the customer. And the customer is responsible for production in the state of that he's taking all the orders in to produce on the machine. But we, with our services, do the operations of the machine in the customer side. And due to the data which is provided by the machine, the Munich Re group could provide services with regards to insurance and supporting analysis, what should be next in predictive services, and so on and so on. So it's the three of us are linked in a partnership.
Okay. How did you start in this process? So, I mean, would preliminary work was necessary, and how was the concept validated?
So we started more than 2 years ago with intensive customer evaluation. What is a real customer pain point? And therefore we did pre-studies to see how we could support this digital transformation of our customers together with the growth strategy each of our customers has. Most of our customers are family-owned businesses, 80% of them. And the digital transformation is a strong change in the way how they produce sheet metal parts. And therefore we did this pre-series, and we have seen that sorting, production, and having a dedicated price before they give orders to their customers is one of the key relevant parts for our customers. And this pay-per-part model addresses rightly these things. So we give the customer a part price in advance to the production. Therefore, he can lay out his offerings to his customers. And in the end, we support him by producing with remote services. And the machine, due to the fact that it is owned by our partner, we are in the position to continuously improve the machine. That is the real difference also for our customers, because he can focus on his expertise, bringing production jobs into his factory.
And now let's come back to the risks. So how do you cover the risks that are associated with this business model? So on the one hand, how do you ensure that you can deliver on your value proposition towards your customer? And on the other hand, how do you ensure that your customer wants to produce enough goods?
So the good thing is we structured this partnership in a so-called special purpose vehicle, where every partner has dedicated contracts to each other. So the customer's duty is to fulfill a certain amount of production volume. The insurance company, the Munich Re, and we have to make sure that the production is always ready and that we have everything in place that we could produce the parts. And we are continuously improving the machine that the price of the part is always the best in the market. So, and these three partnerships are connected with a kind of service level agreements. So we agree upfront how the service will be provided.
Okay, so final question. What has been your biggest learning so far and what are the next steps?
So the biggest learning is that a machine builder has to take the time to develop the business model, and you have to start because the training and the learning is on the road. So we are now this week the first time that we will produce with one of our development customers in Switzerland. So it's a big step, and it needs his time for preparation. So we have been very intensive in market evaluation and in product offering. And now we are for 1 year together with our partners in the development phase of the business model. And that is the biggest learning. Start and learn.
Thanks, Tom, for these great insights. And I look forward to discussing the progress of this project at the next year's Hannover Fair.
Yes, so thank you for inviting me, and we are happy to share our insights next year too.
And best of luck with the start of the production process.
Thank you.
Our next speakers are Helen Landhäußer and Marina Griesinger. Helen is CEO at LOOXR and Marina is Head of Energy Efficiency Management at the Marder company. So a warm welcome to you as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
I mean, with regards to what Tom Schneider from TRUMPF just said, I fear that we might have an elephant in the room because many people in the audience may now say, okay, that is great what TRUMPF has built up here with their equipment as a service model, but you know, that's just TRUMPF. I mean, they have capital resources, they have, it is easy to find partners and they can select the best specialists at the labor market. But in contrast, all of these things are much harder for a small and medium-sized enterprise. So my question to you, Marina, as a representative of a medium-sized enterprise, so what would you respond to this statement?
That is correct. As an SME of around 80 employees, we don't have the time and financial resources a large company has at hand. That can be an obstacle, none yet, that cannot be overcome. At the end of the day, it's all about customer centricity and not about the size of a corporation. For us, with limited resources, it is important to define solutions for the takeover of the risk, etc. Maybe it requires a bit more bravery and most definitely visionary thinking. All in all, no matter of the size of a corporation, any business model should focus on the customer's needs.
Okay, so you have set up an equipment as a service model, as a medium-sized enterprise. So my question is, how did you proceed in setting up this business model? So, I mean, how did processes have to be adapted and what were the technical requirements you had to implement?
I think our process to develop this new business model is rather where we distinguish from a corporation with less rapidly exhausted resources. So we started with smaller steps and developed the business model along the way, always with the customer centricity in our minds. In 2015, we started to develop the leakage app to optimize our own service process for our employees. The app was so well received by our customers that it evolved into its own product. We took this process further with a cross-departmental team and developed a software solution for compressed air. This went so far that we founded a spin-off in 2018, LOOXR.
I think that's the point where we should include Helen to the discussion. So Helen, what is the offering of LOOXR?
Yeah, absolutely. So LOOXR software actually enables customers like Marder or other service providers, manufacturers, whomever, to be able to actually offer new business models such as pay-per-use or remote services to their customers. it is actually that the customer no longer needs to invest in the compressed air system at all, but he can actually rather pay for his actual consumption of compressed air. With that being said, this gives the customer a planning security on the one hand. Also, for example, if we take times like these where we are currently in, it enables the customers to pay less if he has less production output. And additionally, the solution enables customers to distribute what are typically overhead costs to the actual originators.
I mean, such a pay-per-air business model is not only a technical issue, but it also affects various processes in a company, for instance, in sales or in marketing. So how did processes change in these areas?
That is actually a very good question. I would say that the customer has always been king. And the goal of traditional sales used to be to sell products. And I think this is where the processes had to change, because in the past, corporations were usually a pure product seller, whereas nowadays they have to develop into a more holistic solution provider for the customer. So for us, for example, that also changes the process of how our customers actually buy compressed air. At the end of the day, for them, it is important to make sure that the production is running smoothly without any kind of stops or even production downtimes due to the loss of compressed air. So therefore, I would say it is, in the first step, it is not important anymore whether the customer actually uses the compressed air that is coming from his own assets or is bought in addition to make sure that the production is running smoothly. So I would say that this is where we have actually a chance to offer whatever the customer needs and find the most efficient solution for the customer. So in my opinion, I would say that for our sales teams, for example, they have a chance now to be able to always fulfill whatever the customer is looking for, either in a sold way or in a you only pay what you consume perspective.
So, in a nutshell, such a business model offers the opportunity, I think, that the customer can focus on its core competences, and usually this is not compressed air. So what would you say? My final question is, what is your advice to all the other small and medium-sized companies out there who think about to engage in such a business model?
I really do like that question. I think that based on our experiences, our recommendation is to be courageous. I think it is always great if you have a chance to develop kind of a, what we call safe space for your team members to be able to develop ideas, also be able to fail and try again. There is a principle that Henry Ford said, which does state failure is simply the opportunity to try again and begin again, this time more intelligently. And I think this is what we definitely did like about such an approach. And we always recommend try out new things and question things, also still existing ones and also the ones that are currently still working well. We like to say, disrupt the thinking of never change a running system.
Great. I think, honestly, you kind formulate a better conclusion to this. So thank you both for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us.
And thanks also to all the participants and the other speakers. So I hope you've gained some interesting insights into the topic equipment as a service, and I'm quite sure that wasn't the last time we talked about this topic. So as a head of project, I have to say it is always a good idea to click on our website and to follow us on LinkedIn. And in case you want to get in contact with us, please click on the link below. So goodbye to all of you and see you soon.